This could be a real disaster in terms of dropped frames. But we'll see. I can't get my Wi-Fi to connect to my computer. I don't know why. I don't know what the problem is. I keep resetting the router. I keep resetting the connection. My only thought is it's something on my end on the PC with the Wi-Fi adapter maybe. So I may need to source a new one. Hopefully not. That would be annoying. This this nice jacket I'm wearing is actually dark green and I think navy, but obviously green screen. So it's you're not going to get the effect of it. But I got it at Goodwill maybe for $20, $15, and I wear it nearly every day to work. It is extremely comfortable. It's heavy enough, but not too heavy. It's comfortable. It's lined, fleece lined, and it's just perfect for almost any situation that's not straight up summer. So great find. It's a nice color. It just isn't going to show up on the screen. All right. Oh yeah. Let's charge it. We're gonna try to stream a video, and then we'll just see what happens. And then if this works okay, I'll do some of the Wickstrom. Uh, Not too terrible. About 5 hours. I don't know if you've ever listened to Billy Woods. I like him. I like this style of like intentional hip hop. I've been listening to Infinity Knives and Backwash a lot in the last couple weeks. Um, I may play I may play an Infinity Knives song in a little bit. This album just came out a few months ago. Um, I found him through LP, right? I like Killer Mike and Run the Jewels, and LP, and LP's worked with him on some stuff. I mean, I'm not sick, but I did have a bit of a joint, so that's probably what you're hearing. I don't think I'm sick. Um, Hope not. But yeah, I think it's just the effect of the smoke. I mostly I mostly don't I mostly don't smoke flower because it requires me to go outside, and vape is much more convenient most of the time. But I do like flower, um, and various stoners will tell you that if you don't smoke actual flower, you're not getting the actual effects, the entourage effect. Who knows? Um, it's got to be studied more, right? There's a lot. It's like weed science to me is a lot like bro science, like in the gym. And so much of that is not based in reality. It's just sort of based on vibes. And I'm very confident that there are positive medical, uh, applications for cannabis. But I don't know if the people who say it's got to be flour versus, it should be edibles versus, I don't know if there's any meaning to any of that, right? I mean, it sort of makes sense that there would be. It seems like there would probably be uh, some value to different forms of ingestion, but we just don't really have the research on it. I know there's a lot of issues with the reclassification of cannabis, right, as opposed to legalization. But if it is reclassified, I mean, it's supposed to be at this point. They're supposed to have done it. If it is reclassified, it means that research can be done in ways that it isn't currently allowed. So that would be positive. Either way, um, my favorite my favorite weed facts are that we have documented usage back to like the 6th century, 7th century BCE. Um, Probably dates back farther than that, but we have like conclusive evidence of cannabis use in Palestine, actually, in a synagogue, dating to the 6th or 7th century BCE. And then we know that the Scythians were using it because Herodotus wrote about it. So it was known throughout the like Levant area. I did not read that book, but I do have mostly a plant-based diet at this point. Plants and fish mostly. I will not be giving up caffeine, but I have cut back pretty substantially on the amount of it I consume. This is decaf, which sucks, but I mean it's okay. It's okay coffee. It's just not that. It's just not that good relative to what I normally drink. But I'd rather have it as sort of psychological having my coffee than not have it. And I'm going to bed soon, so I'm trying to fight myself. Yeah, I've heard some stuff about mushrooms, specifically. A girl I dated when I was living in LA I mean, we went to meetings a couple times. She was an alcoholic. She went to AA. But she took mushrooms once, and apparently after she did, she never had the desire to drink again. Like, not that she just was able to resist. She just didn't want to. She didn't like the thought of drinking. Um, and I never saw her have any issues with alcohol when we were together. She went to meetings occasionally just to sort of stay in the habit and keep up connections, But she didn't really feel like she needed the help or the encouragement. Which, if it has that capability, then we should 100% make it legal, or at least like over the counter. I don't subscribe to most medical conspiracies, but there is a lot of money in the pharmaceutical industry. Can't argue with that. And interesting. Yeah, I mean, people have been using psychedelics for as long as humans have been able to find them and ingest them, right? It's people like to alter their experience of reality. It's a tale as old as time. The invention of alcohol in like 8,000 BC. But yeah, I mean, again, like as far as therapeutic effects go, I think a lot of these things should be studied, like actually studied. I don't know. This country is as liberal as people think America is. We're a very conservative country. In many areas. I mean, you think about what is allowed on TV, right? Some people think that the TV standards are terrible and there's all this sex on TV and everything, but in England they were showing nipples on TV in like the 70s, right? I'm not saying we should do that. I'm just saying that was 50 years ago. There were nipples in Monty Python sketches, right? And that was, again, 50 years ago. You're not allowed to do that here. We still have some pretty strict standards for what's allowed on the radio. It's very conservative. Most of it comes from religion, the Protestant work ethic and all that. It doesn't all come from religion, but now it's part of the culture. This conservative, don't do anything that's immoral kind of culture, and everything is immoral. The further I get from being a religious person, the more frustrated I get. with religion in general. I'm not somebody who is like, all religion is bad and it's just, sky dad. I take it seriously. I think that it's good to take it seriously because many people take it seriously. But the negative effects on society are difficult to miss if you are actually looking for them. The way we treat women, it doesn't have to be that way. And obviously, look, yes, I'm a good feminist, but it's just like half the population, right? The way we treat women, there have been matriarchal societies. There were female pharaohs, right? Now, mostly they didn't like that. They weren't that woke in 2200 BC or whatever. But there were female rulers 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago. And those are the ones we know about, right? That we have documentation for. Yeah, and I was reading David Graeber, and he was talking about how some Inuit societies would, in the summer, they would have sort of regimented, like nuclear family maybe, style lives. And then in the winter, they would all get back together in the village or whatever. They were like semi-nomadic. And when they would gather together, marriage bonds were not respected or, I guess, enforced. And again, I'm not here to say that that's better or worse than the way things are done currently. I'm just saying there are other options. Well, okay, for women, I'm saying that the current system is worse for women than it could be. But polyamory, probably not for everybody, right? But it can be if you want it to be. I think you can be polyamorous and be part of the church, because as long as you are upfront with your partner and you agree on what's allowed within your relationship, you're not breaking anybody's trust, right? You are not breaking the terms of your relationship that you and your partner have agreed to. So how can you have an issue with it? Right? There are some passages about sex and sexuality in the New Testament, but one of the main ones is that the church leaders can only have one wife. And there's debate about whether that means they can only have been married once, right? The husband of one wife. Does that mean you've only been married once, or does it mean you only have one wife? But that direction only goes for the church leaders. It doesn't account for the people in the church. So I think that is much more flexible than people at church would like to talk about. But the point being, we know these societies have existed in the past. We know things about how women make better decisions than men. Like scientifically, we know that testosterone negatively affects decision making. We know this factually, right? And so the idea that you can't let a woman be in charge because, I know this was the argument about Hillary for a while. What if she's on her period? She might make irrational decisions because she's an emotional woman. But men are the emotional ones. It just manifests in like anger mostly. It doesn't manifest in sensitivity emotion, right? Weeping at Little Women or whatever. It doesn't tend to, it can, and for some men it does, but mostly the way that emotionalness is manifested is in anger. I could keep, it's all just anger, right? And we know this. That's the thing that frustrates me more than anything. There are many things that frustrate me, but The fact that we have so much data that we could use to make decisions with to improve society. We have the research. Like, preventative care is much cheaper than emergency care or drastic care, right? Finding a problem early before it becomes a big problem. We know that it costs more to put somebody in prison than it would cost to house them. We know these things. We just won't act on them because of moralism, right? Or moralizing, I guess. Because we think it's bad to take care of people who can't make it worth your time. That's not very Christian, but most Christians aren't very Christian. So, a whole lot of Republicans are Christians. Almost all of them go to church, right? Tom Cotton is at church every Sunday. I guarantee you Ron DeSantis is at church every Sunday. Bill Clinton was at church every Sunday. It does not actually mean anything, unfortunately. But it gives you a nice cover. Yeah, it is the unwillingness to act on the data that you have collected. Because if you didn't know, so with weed, right? We don't really know. We have some ideas. There's some research on it, but mostly it's speculation, right? We think this might do this. We think this interaction is why this happens. We're pretty sure about some of these things, but, it just hasn't been studied enough. Okay, study it, right? Do the research. Find things out. And then, you don't have to speculate, because you know. And then you can make decisions based on your knowledge. We know a great many things about how we could improve people's lives and save money. And yet, we have no interest in enacting them. Well, anyway, we finally got some snow here. It's snowing at the moment, in fact. Not very hard. It's not going to stick. But it is nice to finally get some snow because it's been in the 60s, for the last month. Really should be colder than that in January in the mountains. So we're hoping that it will actually be cold for a while. I am still looking to buy my snowboard. But I haven't bought one yet because there's not enough snow at the place where I would be snowboarding to use it. So why spend the money before I have somewhere to use it? So we're hoping that it will now get cold. It's nice flakes. They're nice big flakes. I went outside and thought, maybe I'll take a picture of this. Yeah, not gonna show up in a picture. It's not that thick. But all right. Well, I haven't been writing much because I've already covered a lot of the stuff he has to say, but we'll give it another few minutes. We'll see how this goes. My internet is not the greatest. I'm trying to parse what that is.
Patent office in Berlin.
Oh, God. I forgot I have him up too loud.
That they looted, depraved the German people, starving the German people to death. And it was one of the main aides of Roosevelt the Jew who wanted to starve the German men, women, and children left in Germany, wanted them totally starved to death.
Well, he didn't do a very good job of doing that. This is all about World War II revisionism, and basically he thinks that the Germans were right. Obviously, I mean, we've talked about this. He's a neo-Nazi. So a lot of this is basically justifying what Germany did retroactively by saying, one, what the Allies did was worse, and two, that like the only crime the Germans committed was taking back their banking system. Right? It's interesting. I mean, I've talked about this before, but Christians are not supposed to be about the things of this earth so much, right? Jesus kind of, blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek. Don't worry about tomorrow because God will take care of you. Don't worry about what you have to eat or drink or wear. Does the Son of Man has no place to lay his head, right? Like there's all kinds of stuff in the New Testament about how you shouldn't be focused on earthly things like money. And that has been used and misused in various ways throughout history. But, it gave rise to, I can't remember, Dominicans maybe? I can't remember which monastic sect it is, but I think several different ones that all took vows of poverty, to try and live an ascetic life where you just spend most of your time praying and interceding for people, which again, variously effective and genuine, I would say, but certainly some were very genuine about it. It's for a religion that is that much focused on things of heaven and not of earth. It's interesting how focused Jim is on money. It seems like the sort of thing that shouldn't be his priority. But it very much is. He is very, very focused on money.
Assistant Secretary of State William L. Clayton on June 1945 was equally candid. He said, "We intend to secure the full disclosure of all existing German technology and inventions for the benefit of the United Nations." And who created the United Nations? The Jews. Where's the word?
Everything comes back to the same people. It is a song with one note.
World Bank headquarters, the United Nations. Where's the International Monetary Fund station? The United Nations. Who gave the land for the United Nations to be built on? Rockefeller, the Jew. The Jews were on it from the ground floor. Wake up! It's the Jews, stupid!
I mean, again, he's not hiding the ball, right? The rise of... Well, I would actually be interested to hear if you have specific thoughts about Nick Fuentes, because I know he's a rising star in the Republican Party. The little Nazi twerp. Oh, yeah, I actually need to shave, but you can see that my beard is going white in the middle. It's full. I mean, there's no patches. It's just It's just white. He is unfortunately an influential anti-Semite, as well as being a clown and a jester. Tucker Carlson, etc. Very unfortunate to see him getting any level of traction. He was at Unite the Right, right? The first big white power movement of the Trump era back in 2017. Nick Fuentes was there. He has been about this life for like a decade. And he is just, it's not that he is necessarily that smart, but he is pretty sharp. He has principles, as unpleasant as they are, right? There's stuff he cares about that transcends party for him. He cares about anti-Semitism. That matters to him. Whether the Republicans are doing it or the Democrats, or if the Republicans aren't doing it hard enough, he's one of these people that sort of a person who doesn't know very much might hear them talk and go, oh, this guy has some good points. Like, look, he's criticizing these things that I also know about and think are maybe bad, right? Whether that's our military policy or whether that's the Israel-Palestine genocide, or I don't know what else he talks about. I don't listen to him. But you can make, or maybe he's criticizing a Republican politician, right? And you think, oh, this guy might be an ally because look, he's criticizing these things. But he's not criticizing them for the same reason you are. He's criticizing Republicans because they're not pushing his project hard enough. He needs it to be more anti-Semitic and more direct, more anti-immigrant, right? That's his goal. He doesn't care he's not supporting a politician. He backed Trump because Trump said, I'm going to make your Nazi dreams come true. But that hasn't been happening the way Nick wants it to happen. So he criticizes Trump. That doesn't mean that he's not a MAGA Republican or whatever. He really does transcend the left-right paradigm. Alex Jones claims all the time that he's not on the right and he's on the left. He's above it all, which is bullshit. He knows who pays him. But Nick Fuentes, he doesn't care. He is looking for anybody who will help him advance his anti-Semitic wishes. And he will criticize anybody who isn't going far enough, which gives him some seeming credibility. It's really... I just want to have a class that everybody's required to attend in the whole country and say sometimes people will say things that you agree with for reasons that you won't agree with. So you should ask some questions. But people often don't have very much information, and that's partly their fault and partly not their fault. And these are the same people, in many cases, who will tell you that you need to do your own research. I weep. I weep for this country. That's not unique to us. I'm not... It's another feature of capitalism. The rat race. The stuff the unions were fighting for back in the day, back in the 1880s. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for leisure. And the idea was you would learn, you would educate yourself. during your off time. That was the idea. How much it happened in practice, I mean, for one thing, they didn't get that. But when you're working really long days and you don't have a lot of free time, and you don't have a lot of free energy, what are you going to do? Are you going to read Capital? Are you going to read fucking Kropotkin? No, you're not. So, you know, it is what it is. You probably didn't get that great of an education because, again, another thing that we know, right? We have data. We know how students learn best. We know that the incessant testing is not producing the outcomes that you would want it to. So we got to test more is the answer, not change the way we teach. Certainly we shouldn't give any more resources to schools because, you know, they probably just misuse them, like feeding the kids or trying to take them on field trips. I didn't go to public school. I have had very little to no interaction with the American public school system. But my wife is an English teacher in a high school. She sees it every day. You know? But so I keep going back to David Graeber because I read Bullshit Jobs and I think he made some really good points. And one of the points he made was people who have bullshit jobs. And I don't know if you've read the essay or read the book. I don't want to assume you haven't. But in case it's been a while, just to recap. People who have bullshit jobs, and by bullshit jobs, we mean jobs that don't need to exist, right? Insurance agent or like junior manager, right? These jobs, I mean, most sales jobs, these jobs that don't need to exist because the product that you're selling doesn't need to exist, right? These sorts of people in these sorts of jobs, I have been in those jobs, often resent people who have jobs in the caring sector, right? Jobs that are not bullshit, that matter. Your job, I know you have satisfaction from your job because when you are teaching or being a nurse or being a therapist or a social worker, you feel fulfilled by your work because you know that you're doing something that matters and it affects people's lives. Because you get to have some satisfaction from your work, you should not have good compensation. You should have to suffer in some way. We have to suffer making good money doing our jobs that we hate and that don't need to exist. You are doing a job maybe that you wanted to do, right? That's what you went to college for because you wanted to be a history teacher or a math teacher or whatever. Well, fuck you. Because you are doing something that you want to do, you have to suffer in a different way. And that's kind of true. That's just kind of the way people feel about they think that you're like, you think you're better than them because you're doing something that matters. I don't know. But teachers are some of the most hated people in the country. Is teach your goddamn snotty little brats how to read and write and tie their shoes and often feed them out of their own pockets. You know. Can you imagine such a thing? And as my partner has pointed out many times, if she could like actually indoctrinate them, it would be to take a shower and wear deodorant. You know, to actually turn in their homework. That would be her indoctrination. Actually turn in your assignment. She had something like 40% of her students, maybe 35% of her students, not even turn in their final at the end of the semester. Just straight up not, just a zero. And convince the children to turn in their work. How are you going to make them become communists? You know, you gotta have people to be afraid of. You gotta have targets to scare your base. Is it coming back? Looks like it is. Okay, it looks like it stabilized a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, yeah, I know. It's off my hotspot, actually, because Google Fiber is not cooperating today. It's very frustrating. Try to do a little bit more of this, and we'll see if my phone can handle it.
Loaded on war plunder, a now expansionist, Jew-controlled United States was to build on its ill-gotten gains for the next 75 years after looting the patent office and plundering the German society. Nick Cook, aerospace consultant for Jane's Defense Weekly, wrote in a Daily Mail of August 19, 2001.
What the fuck is Jane's Defense Weekly? Like, might be a real thing. I don't know. But this dude sounds like a Nazi.
A lot of the American expertise on anti-gravity dated from decades earlier, and National Socialist Germany in particular.
That's why I say he sounds like a Nazi. Because you wouldn't write it out like that if you didn't think they deserved a little more respect. I don't think they deserve more respect.
Much of what formed the basis of the Skunk Works Lockheed projects came from German technology and expertise plundered by the Allies at the end of the Second World War.
Some of that's true.
Germany was a treasure trove of desirable technology, covering everything from weaponry to electronics to textiles and medicine. Oh, please. Britain, Ian Fleming.
Do you think he knows that that's not just the whole name? Do you think he knows that that means it's Ian Fleming from Britain? I don't know how true that was, this thing about Ian Fleming. I know he was like a secret agent of some sort for the British Empire. There's a memo that he wrote about how a plan he had to try and plant misinformation so the Germans would think it was real, and he titled it something like an idea on how to plant misinformation, not a very nice one, like in parentheses, because it involved using a corpse but like, so yeah, I mean, he was a spy of whatever that looked like in the 1940s.
Was later to write the James Bond novels, set up what was virtually a private army tasked with tech plunder. However, the British were ill prepared to take advantage of the opportunity.
Now look, a lot of this is shit talking the Americans, but Jim is an American and he thinks God is going to put the new kingdom of Israel in America. So I don't know why he is so, I mean, I guess it's because he just is like, this was all controlled by the Jews. The Americans that we're talking about here weren't real Americans. You know, they're Jews, and so it's right to run them down in this way.
Communities that face them. The more resourceful, rapacious Americans simply remove the paperwork for hundreds of thousands of patents and ship them home. According to the U.S. Office of Technical Services,
now listen, I talked about this a little bit last time I streamed. I'll just reiterate. There's a concept of the spoils of war. I do not subscribe really to that because I don't think war is good. I think very, very rarely is there a good justification to be in a war. But throughout all of history, the winners get to decide how things go after the war. If the winners decide they're going to take your stuff, they take your stuff. If they say we're going to take your stuff, but we're going to let you remain an independent country, you say, thank you, sir. You know, like, I'm not saying that it's morally correct, but I am saying that is how militaries operate. That's how it works. We currently are in possession of a lot of Venezuelan oil, which is absolutely fucking crazy. But what's Venezuela going to do about it? Right? What was Germany going to do about it? Nothing. Because they lost. And they had done a genocide and tried to take over several countries. And the goal was to take over every country. So, like, they were not going to be just given a slap on the wrist. They'd already started a World War 30 years previous to this one. Like, it's just ridiculous. This crying about how badly they were treated. A lot of it is not true, which is the first thing, right? There's a lot of conspiracy about how the Allies treated the Germans after the war, and most of it is not true. It's just designed to make the Germans look less bad. But also, the Germans started 2 world wars in 30 years. You know, that they should have felt a punishment for doing that. I don't want to hear about poor little They were mean after the war. Well, they shouldn't have put, 12 million people in camps.
Set up to ensure that German technology was rapidly moving to American industry. The documents contained a wealth of material which, quote, very likely contained practically all the scientific, industrial, and military secrets of National Socialist Germany, unquote.
They didn't need them anymore. In fairness, National Socialist Germany did not exist, so why would they need that?
Under the term reparations, millions of German people were transported to the Soviet gulags to be used as slave labor. For the large part, these unfortunates, women and children included, were sealed in American-made rolling stock and transported across the railway infrastructure built on slave labor using Western-made materials.
Boy, that sounds a lot like what the Germans did in Germany with slave labor. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good afternoon. I will be going to bed shortly.
Ralph Keeling went on to say, at Potsdam, Russia was apportioned the lion's share of reparations. The Jew-controlled, filthy, Christ-killing communists of the Soviet Union, of the butcher Stalin. She was to receive her own zone called East Germany or East Berlin, plus 25% from other zones in Germany. The value of Germany's bombed and battered plant was put at between $5 and $10 billion. Half of it was in the Soviet zone, the East zone, and was now the Soviet Union's by right of conquest. It was agreed 40% of it could be removed to the Soviet Union. 310 plants were dismantled and accordingly removed entirely into the Jew-Soviet Union. 6 shiploads carrying the physical assets of the Dashmeg shipyard, Germany's largest shipbuilding company. 20 carloads of machinery and tools valued at $5 million then, representing half of Germany's largest ball bearing plant. The Gindorf Amagana Chemical Works, valued at $10 million, and the vast Daimler-Benz underground
Daimler-Benz
aircraft engine plant. According to Reparation Commissioner Edwin W. Cayley, the United States had earmarked 144 plants for removal to the Soviet Union. Many of Germany's greatest manufacturing producers of civilian goods were totally dismantled and shipped eastward. Among them were the 2 largest factories, the largest sugar refineries, the largest grain processing mills in Europe, the great Bimberg silk mills, famous for their hosiery and lingerie.
Hey, you should be fine with this because he's opposed to lingerie.
And the Zeiss optical works.
Zeiss.
All secondary rail lines were torn up and all electric locomotives were removed. 200 key plants were placed under direct Jewish Soviet control.
Hey, here's the thing. I'm going to suggest that this quote has been doctored or completely fabricated, possibly, because this last line here, this is all quoted. I don't think that the Reparations Commissioner is going to say that it was the Jew-controlled USSR. Now, America was still fairly anti-Semitic, so it is possible, but I would wager that was not the original quote.
With the German workforce of 1,300,000 on subsistence wages, the profits going to the Jew-controlled Soviet Union, unquote. Russia is as keen to get as much loot as possible to help make her 5-year communist plan of Stalin successful and ultimately to absorb the German Reich into the Soviet Union. Yes, to absorb the German Reich into the Soviet Union. So what they did, all right, they finally tore the wall down to make one Germany. But instead of physically absorbing Germany into the Soviet Union, of which Russia is still a Soviet communist nation under...
Not really.
All right. They gave you Jewish chancellors, and they put Jews in all the universities, and they put Jews in your high schools and elementary schools.
Does he not understand that the word pogrom comes from Russia? Like, there were certainly some Jewish intellectuals who were Russian, but the Russians did not like Jews. That was not a thing that they were known for, being like really generous and tolerant of Jewish people. That's pogrom comes from what the Russians would do to their Jewish communities. So this is so lazy.
To go right back and teach the same Jewish communism that was being taught before the German Reich, and the German people rose up to take their country back. Isn't it ironic how the Jews are nothing but thieves, liars, and murderers, just like Yahweh the Christ said they were in John 8:44, that they were not of God in John 8:47.
I knew he was going to come back to John 8:44.
Satan himself. The Jews are the communists. The Jews are the Antichrist. The Jew is the Christ murderers. Did not they say, the Jew, let his blood be upon our children, on us and our children forever?
No. I mean, we've talked about this before. This is a classic anti-Semitic, justification. But there's no reason to believe that they actually said that. There is reason to believe that Matthew was written to attack Jewishness. Because at the time the book was written, there's a war. I mean, it's not like a shooting war, but there's sort of a battle for the identity of what Christianity will be. Will it be Jesus was the Messiah, but you still are a Jew and you still follow the law and the Torah and you do all the ceremonial washing and the food laws and all that? Is it going to be that, or is it going to be this different version? And so the book of Matthew is sort of distancing Christians from Jewishness. Anyway, I'm sometimes people attribute things to people to make them seem better or worse, right? Jim has a lot of fake quotes from Thomas Jefferson, for example, Benjamin Franklin. Fake quotes that he believes are real, right? So that happens. People make stuff up.
Yes, they did. And it's very interesting, isn't it, as we discuss and we concern ourselves with all these things. So what they did is they turned around and they made the people think that Germany was unified again as a German republic, which is a figment of your imagination. And they put German chancellors now, like Merkel and Juncker and the rest of these filthy Jew swine, over the German people to keep them suppressed under their thumb. And they brought in, and what they did is they brought in homosexuality, abortion.
That's right. Homosexuality didn't exist until the Jews got involved, I guess.
Pornography. And they put such taxes on the German people through the European Union, which was created by Jews, where you couldn't afford to have children. You couldn't afford to own a home. And then they invaded you with millions of mongrels from North Africa and the Mideast. After World War II had ended in Germany, they rounded up much of the women and girls, forced them into the subways, and turned the Mongolian troops of the Soviet Union to rape them and plunder them and kill them.
I would really need to see some documentation for that. It's a big claim, you know. I'm fully confident that there was unacceptable sexual violence after World War II and during World War II. And I am equally confident that it was done by the Germans to the people they were doing genocide to. And I'm sure it also happened to German people. And it's bad. It's bad regardless of who's doing it or when it's happening. But again, this is the speck in the eye versus the log, where what Germany did was so heinous that all this retconning to try and make them look innocent in comparison is pretty weak. I think I'm going to call it. Man, it's been about an hour, so we'll wrap it up for today. Hopefully the internet will be functional the next time I stream.